Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage Ryan Groves.
Play hard, work hard, play hard, we work hard, play hard, keep partying like it's your job. Work hard, play hard, work hard, play hard, we work hard, play hard, keep partying like it's your job. Come on, baby, and drop it. Squirt the flow and just mop it. Show these gangsters.
Okay. Stop it. You guys, save it for tonight. Come on. It's going to be a great time. Okay, you guys, welcome to the afternoon session. So exciting. Those conversations we talked about this morning, these are some of them. So this is going to be really fun. I hope you guys are having a blast. We have a wonderful, wonderful time with you. Also, today, really exciting. And I know that you guys kind of know it's all going on in the background. We're here to talk entrepreneurship. And of course, some of you are actually in the middle of launching your own thing. So this evening, we're going to announce the winners of the chapter and individual awards for the competition program. As a note, this year we have 14 universities that have made it into the running for the awards program. There are 400 plus people from almost 100 universities. And so I know that tons of you have participated. So this is a big moment of these people trying to get their ideas launched. So if you see them, give them a high five or a COVID, whatever thing, elbow bump, do your thing. Encourage them, cheer for them. It's going to be wild. And also, as a reminder, at CEO, this is the game. This is the encouragement. This is where we want you guys all playing. All of you are invited to apply for the program as early as next month, in fact, for 2022. The global conference next year will be held in Chicago, Illinois. Shout out Chicago. Gosh, that's a good city. Man, that's a good city. No offense, Tampa. Tampa's a great city. There was a tornado over the airport yesterday. It's a great city, but Chicago's frozen. Okay. All right, so yeah, it's a great way to earn funding for your chapter. It's also just an awesome way to learn, and you might just launch a company, changes your whole life. So that's phenomenal. But enough about that. That's huge. That's awesome. I am so excited to introduce our speaker. So with everything going on COVID, we do have only just 2 virtual speakers. So I'm pretty amazed that everybody's been able to make it. But this next one, though he is virtual, he's sensational. I got to hang out with him a little bit earlier this week. Our speaker, his name is Travis Rosbach. He is the founder of HydroFlask. It's like the really cool water bottles, cups, etc. Like the giant empire that they've built. Travis is behind all of that. So yes, he's an entrepreneur, he's a founder, but this guy is brilliant. He's a jack of all trades. He's a pilot, he's a scuba diver, he's an explorer. He is a beard grower of incredible renown. And he's also just a wonderful, wonderful human who's interested in saying, like, how do we do this? How do we play this game right? How do we figure out what's true? And how do we build something really exciting? How do you build something? That's what he's really interested in. And that's why he wanted to come and give his time. So please help me in welcoming, in a virtual capacity, he will be able to see and hear us, Mr. Travis Rosbach. All right, let's figure this out. Hey, Travis, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I just can't see. I just see me.
You just see you?
I just see me.
I mean, that is a nice thing to look at.
Yeah, debatable.
That's great. Hey, so we'll get that figured out. In the meantime, we're so glad you kind of welcomed us.
There you go, Ryan.
Oh, hey, everybody wave. Everybody wave to Travis. Woo! Awesome. Do you have virtual fish behind you?
Well, and a virtual fireplace, because it was a fireside chat. So I brought a fireplace, and I brought a fish tank. If they start to fight, let me know. I'll tap, and they'll stop, typically. That's
fantastic. I love that. Well, thank you for leaning into the virtual theme. I'm so glad you're here, and really excited for everybody to hear your story. So, Travis, you were running HydroFlask, or you founded HydroFlask, and that's been a big part of your story. But how did you come to be an entrepreneur? How did you learn how to do this?
Well, I started reading books when I was about 12. I was fortunate enough I was bequeathed a big-ass bookshelf with business books. And the guy didn't actually leave it to me, his sister. So this guy died, my neighbor died, and I got his bookshelf. And it was all these business books. And there was something about the books that just called me. And I started reading these business books, and I knew that someday I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Fast forward a couple of years later, I met my dad down in the U.S. Virgin Islands. He owns some scuba diving shops. And so I got to go into business at 14. I was helping him out nights, weekends, summers, all the different vacations. And so that's kind of how it all started. It was about 12 to 14 years old.
Wow. So it did a little hit there. So me stuttering was just in virtual reply. So you were 12 to 14 years old, and that's when you kind of got your start. You started cutting your teeth. You started learning the game.
Yeah, I started studying just as much as I could. I grew up in Salem, Oregon, and it rains a lot. It's pretty nasty, especially in the wintertime. So I didn't have a lot to do, and I was grounded a lot, so I read a lot of books. And I just poured right into the business books for some reason. It really held my fascination. Unlike anything else, I wasn't interested in school. I was only interested in girls in business, really.
So what? Okay, those are both good things. Wonderful markets, for sure. So describe. We'll work on your first date later. But how about your first venture? Like, what was the first company that you started? This was yours.
So I would say that I was living in Florida, and I was flying jets, charter jet pilot, and just kind of ready to start, spending more time at home and at one location geographically. And we started. This was about 2005, 2006, when the housing economy was kind of starting to go up. Maybe 2004, 2005. And so we started a sort of a real estate company buying, fixing, flipping houses, and it just didn't go well. I didn't really have a passion for that. I didn't like to buy a house from somebody for cheaper than it was actually really probably worth. And it felt kind of used car salesman-y, which I later became a used car salesman. But it just didn't feel quite right. But that was probably my first. Was a failed real estate company.
And so it sounds like you definitely, the passion angle became apparent. So like the learnings weren't just a success. The learnings were also some of the turbulence, some of the conflict, even the internal conflict of interest that you felt about that. Like, so what did you take from that, like moving forward?
I think that I really learned that anything from then forward, I would want to have a lot more passion for it, or at least more interest. And I also really appreciated that I learned that I didn't want to do anything that I wasn't able to help others in a really good way. Getting people out of potential foreclosure, that's nice, but again, I just didn't feel real comfortable with it. And so the one after that, accidentally just started a fence company in Central Oregon called Bend Fencing, and somehow stumbled backwards into it, and did really well, and then took off and just kept going. So.
Well, that's great. So far we've got scuba diver in the Caribbean to real estate development and now fence building in the Pacific Northwest, right? That's a pretty big geography and life skill to cover. So fast forward a bit from these plays. You've learned a bit about yourself. You've learned a bit about what drives you as an entrepreneur. And you're learning even what's your competency and where's their opportunity. When do we get to the moment that inspired HydroFlask? What made you jump in to that market?
Well, I was in Honolulu, downtown. I had a sign company called Oahu Signs and Screen Printing. And I was thirsty one day. I was wanting to drink out of a bottle that wasn't single-use plastic. I'd seen a single-use plastic washing up on the beaches and the shores. And I actually lived in Wairua, right on the North Shore on the beach, and we'd see all the plastic. But from my rock climbing days, I knew that there was a plastic water bottle brand that was fairly well known. And so I went in to go buy it, and there was none. And I asked the guy, I said, why are these shelves bare? Where are all the water bottles? And he said, well, there's this thing, and the owner's French, and she's probably blown it out of proportion, but we don't know what it is, but perhaps plastic's just not that great for us. So as a precautionary, what would be a good word to follow up with precautionary? A precautionary
measure?
Measure. I like measure. I'm going to go with that. I thank you. As a precautionary measure, they pulled all the bottles. And I was like, well, who's going to fill up these shelves? And the guy said, no, buddy, there's no one. And I said, I will do that. And it hit me in the back of the head. It came out my mouth, and it just came out before I even knew what it was. And as soon as I said it, I saw myself about 10 years down the road talking about the success of these water bottles. And the guy laughed at me. But I'd already had that vision. It's like he got there just a bit late because his laugh didn't really perturb me. It actually gave me a little bit more fodder for my fire to go do it. Sure enough, about 3 years later, I went back and got to see that that wall was full of HFs.
That's fantastic. Hold on, did you know this guy?
No, I just went in to go buy a water.
So this guy saw this like life-changing moment for you as you have this epiphany. I will become the entrepreneur. And he's just kind of like, cool, thanks for visiting Hawaii.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was like, actually, yeah. But I remember looking at him and thinking, you don't know HydroFlask? Like, how could you not know HydroFlask, man? You know, like, it's okay, little buddy. You know, it's cool. I just said thank you and walked out, yeah, and started HydroFlask.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's a strong move. I mean, but you do see that happen. So like the founder of IBM, like he also famous is like I sat down one day and I just had the vision of here's the company I wanted to be running 20 years from now. And I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and then like I did the sculptor thing of like, well, I removed everything from the marble that wasn't the elephant, and there you go, I got my sculpture. So there's lots of prospective and current entrepreneurs in this room. Who, you know, we've all seen HydroFlask in the market. Like, we love hearing the story. That's a phenomenal. I mean, it's an epiphany moment for sure, but it's an epiphany moment predicated by you having years of applying yourself creatively to the world, and like even kind of understanding like, oh, I don't fit here. Where will I fit? I've got to make my own opportunity. So for all of the entrepreneurs in this room, could you help us now? We're at the moment of epiphany. Can you walk through the steps, demystify what did it then take to get from 0 to 1 to like the first person buying a HydroFlask?
Okay, well, there was a lot of those steps, but you know, ironically enough, it just always was. HydroFlask just was. I just knew that it was this global phenomenon, and people would be drinking more water, they would be healthier, we'd be protecting the oceans, and it just was supposed to be. And so a lot of hardships came up. It was extremely difficult over and over and over again. But once I took that first step towards, okay, I'm going to start this water bottle company, and that's all there is, unseen forces started coming to my aid. You know, I had this memory of this guy who used to fly from Hawaii to China with a group of people to go look at factories, and they were sourcing products from factories in China. I was like, okay, well, where's that guy? How do I go find that guy? And I found the guy, and I started, you know, I bought him lunch and figured out what he was doing, running these field trips to Hawaii and where he was going, what he was doing. And you know, this is before Google was really as big or as, you know, easy to use as it is now. And definitely before the Alibaba or anything like that, which I do not recommend anybody get onto. And so I just said, I'm doing this. And pretty soon one thing led to another, which led to another. And then we got prototypes, and those samples showed up, and they They were insulated, they worked, and we took them around Ireland and shot a bunch of pictures, and every model that we handed them to was like, wow, this is incredible. This is something like I've never seen before. And it was like, okay, well, this just might work. And so we ordered 5,000, I think, or no, 3,000 was our first minimum order quantity. And we ran out of money. And so they were gracious enough to send us half the order up front. And man, it just took off. And we did like 600% a quarter after that.
Wow, that's sensational. So you move your first several thousand units, and yeah, you guys you hit that moment. You rode the wave, you got the rocket ship, and you have this really great perspective of an entrepreneur. And like we talk about, Clayton Christensen, the innovator's dilemma, where you have the type of person who can create an idea, but then it's typically a different type of person, a different sort of skill set to then take that idea, get market traction, and then grow that idea. We've even heard that from some of the speakers we've had today, like, okay, well, this is where I come in at a venture. But for you, you've been able to be a part of the whole journey. So as it's gone, how have you kept your center? How have you kept the bullseye for you as somebody who's founding this, leading this, as HydroFlask has grown? How do you stay on the surfboard, on the wave, without just totally wiping out?
Well, I wiped out a lot, but more than that, I tried to jump off the surfboard a lot because the waves were just getting bigger and bigger, and it got scary. But at the same time, the bigger the waves got, the more I accomplished riding that proverbial wave. It was like the more fun it got, and the more courage, and the more knowledge that I had that I could get these bigger waves. And honestly, like there were a lot of days where I was just like, screw it, I'm out. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. This is just too much. And I'd get ready to head out. And one time I tried to jump on my motorcycle and take off to Patagonia. And I didn't have my passport because it was the passport office trying to, get my visa to go off to some country. And it's like, well, I can't get to Mexico. And if I can't get through Mexico, I definitely can't get to Patagonia. So I guess, screw it. I'm in for one more day, 24 more hours. Maybe my passport will come. So I went back to the office and just kept cranking away. But I think riding my motorcycle, flying jets helped a lot. Flying airplanes really fast, really high, really far. Like things that I have to focus. Scuba diving, I have to focus. Chainsawing down trees, I have to focus. Like blocking everything out. And just spending time in that focused area, because it happens so much. It happened so much with HydroFlask, where I was so focused on HydroFlask. It was extremely difficult for me to focus on anything that was like Travis related. Like I didn't know to eat or sleep or I did not take care of Travis the human because it was just business. And so, like anytime I was on the motorcycle, it was like, okay, self-preservation time, dude. Like you got to take care of yourself. So that's a long answer, I felt like.
No, that's wonderful. And I think that's really critical because so much of the narrative that we get around entrepreneurship is like, well, you got to hustle. Like no matter what the problem is, the answer is more hustle and more hustle and more hustle. And it becomes this law of diminishing returns where we very rarely stop to say, like, okay, what's your most valuable asset? And it's your mind. So, I mean, even with you, so you have, not all of us are flying jets, a few maybe, but you have the jets, you had the scuba diving, you had these things that you did, and I know that you have other stuff, yoga, even just walking probably in nature with your dogs, are these really critical elements of your mental health. So you have that for yourself. How does that play out in your company? Is that like something HydroFlask promotes? Is it part of a strategy, or is that just a personal element that you've implemented?
Well, I can't speak to HydroFlask today, but that was absolutely built into HydroFlask. I mean, it was almost as though like I was sacrificing myself so much, it was almost like I didn't want anybody else to have to suffer, and I'm sure people suffered with me. There were a lot of long nights and late nights and long weekends and things like that. We suffered together greatly, but I kind of did not want, I was okay being the poster boy for the suffering as long as nobody else had to. So we just kind of built into the culture, lunches and, happy hours and, everything that you do as a growing, cool kid company, especially with Google kind of leading the way at that time, Patagonia, Zappos, they were kind of showing us how to be this, sort of cool startup, circa 2010, 2011.
All the cool kids, the OGs of the startup world, truly, back in the 09s. It was a tough crowd. So that's actually a really good point. We've talked about you as the founder, having the epiphany moment, going out, just asking for help, connecting with people, like pulling at the threads and seeing where they lead and seeing what you can piece together, and just, again, keeping that tenacity to keep going until you get to that product and having that wonderful moment. But to grow HydroFlask, and you and I talked about this in some of our conversation earlier, when you were realizing like, wow, this is switching from just me creating a product to me building a team, building a company, how did you think about that? Because a lot of people in this room might find themselves in the same position someday. So how did you process and strategize, here's how I build my company, bring people on board, get them to share this vision, and put in their creative thoughts with me?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Ryan. I think that for the most part, with the fence company, with the sign company, with the real estate company, with the scuba dive shops, with everything that I'd had to learn, I think the sign company was a really good one, because I learned about Pantones and CMYK and printing and branding and marketing and how agencies work. And so we kind of became this agency that was building this brand, but the brand was also the business. And so we were kind of a hybrid, PR, marketing, branding agency for ourselves. And so that's how I looked at it. That's kind of how I dove into it. I had a partner for a little while who, she would help, with the financial side of things, and she'd help with the HR, things that I'm not good at. She was a big help with. But as far as everything else that I would be doing, I would get to the point where I just physically could not do that anymore, and then I'd find somebody to do that. Like, okay, well, now we need a graphic designer. And then I'd just start giving Alice, the first graphic designer, I gave her, so much, and then pretty soon Alice is like, Travis, I just can't, okay, well, let's get a second graphic designer. And so it was kind of by necessity. In those early days, it was we needed warm bodies answering the phone and being up front, and then all of a sudden we needed people who could speak Japanese and communicate and negotiate in Japan and the far side of the world, and it happened pretty dang quick. But again, like, act boldly and unseen forces will come to your aid, and sure enough, people would show up. They're like, hey, I speak Japanese, Mandarin, and Cantonese, and I'm like, yeah, cool, dude, let's go.
That's great. So you built this company, and as needs must, the people would come, you'd find these roles, you'd be able to fill them. And as you expanded, of course, your circles expand. So we've got the 0 to 1. We've got the, really like the 1 to 100 from there. But of course, HydroFlask, what's so remarkable is how you truly hit scale. What had to change at HydroFlask for HydroFlask to go from that, oh, we've got this need, I'm just fighting fires, to get to the next stage? What had to change for you to go from that, here's what we need right now, to getting from like 0 to 1, 1 to 100, but then from the 100 to 10,000 to 10 million? Like, what had to change at your company? What did you have to let go?
Well, I had to let go equity. Yeah, it was cash. Cash became very, very much a necessity very early on, because, I hadn't really, it was kind of a dichotomy of, I see this as HydroFlask 2021. I knew it was going to be HydroFlask. But at the same time, I was happy to get into one store and then two stores. So like every single one store was just awesome. It was so great, so happy. I got to talk on the phone with the vendors and the owners of these cool little mom and pop stores. And then we started getting into bigger outlets, and it was like, oh, I know that store, I shop there. I've been there before. And then it became, okay, well, you need 40,000 bottles. Okay, well, that's, that's a lot of money. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then pretty soon we needed that every single month. We'd need a 40-foot shipping container. And then if you get a 40-foot shipping container in, you gotta unload it. Well, how the heck do you unload a shipping container? Well, you need these cart things. Where do you buy those cart things? Well, you need a lift gate. What the hell's a lift? Forklift. I don't know. So we just kind of started learning about where do you buy a forklift, and stuff like that.
But this is wonderful. I mean, because so many people enter it with this like preconceived notion of like, oh, well, I have to learn everything, and then once I've learned everything, then I can take my first step. I love you saying no.
There's a forklift guy.
Yeah.
No, there's a forklift guy who knows all about forklifts. There's no reason to open a forklift manual when you can call the guy. You pay him $45, $85 an hour. He comes out and he forklifts for you.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That's great. Good job, forklift guy.
Yeah, oh, he loves it. He's as happy as can be. I mean, he's living his dream. His passion is forklifting. And if you can find those people, it's awesome. But then the issue becomes, well, how in the heck do you pay for 40,000 water bottles every single month? Well, you need money. And that's when you have to go and kind of do as you need to do to find cash.
So, yes, talk to me about capital. Unpack that. How did you get capital? How do you approach that? What are your thoughts on that?
The very first thing we did was sold everything we owned. Literally sold the cutlery, the linens, all the furniture, everything we owned. One suitcase each for the two of us. Showed up at my mom's house, slept in the spare bedroom, had no money, put everything into HydroFlask. As it started growing and we got some traction and people started to talk about it, well, then it was easier to reach out to friends and family and, like $500 here, $20,000 there. It just kind of started coming in and we would kind of piece together what we needed to piece together to get more bottles. Because bottles equated to cash and cash equated to everything we needed to do. And so my main focus in life was just to get as many bottles as I possibly could, because the bottles were what fed the employees and paid their bills. Debt is what fueled and ran us, but those bottles were the intermediary, for making everything move forward. So after the friends and family sort of round, we had fans that would show up and say, hey, I'm a banker, I'm a nice guy, here's some money. And then they'd come in with the not so nice tactics to get the money back. You got to make sure you read the fine print, make sure they don't have any connections to any foreign entities, because those dudes don't play nice. So we got those rounds, and then pretty soon we were fortunate enough that one day I was literally on it was a Wednesday, and I was getting ready to close the doors on Friday. We'd had a string of bad runs and bad luck, and I just could not do anymore. I couldn't pay the employees. I couldn't keep the lights on. And this guy came in and was looking for a job, and I kept telling him no, not hiring, not hiring, not hiring. Finally, I said, all right, now here's the truth. We're closing on Friday. And he said, why? I said, well, because I need money. We're out of cash. He says, well, how much do you need? I said, $1 million. How's that? And he says, so if I got you $1 million Thursday or Friday, could I start Monday? I was like, yeah, okay, dude, let's do that. It was like call security. Let's get him out of here, please. And so he leaves. Friday morning, dude shows up with the check. He's got $1 million. Here you go, Trav.
What?
Called China. Hey, I'm coming over. Let's get some more bottles. I hopped on a plane, went to China. The check got cleared, and we bought more bottles. So,
did he get the job?
Easy. Oh yeah. I think he's probably still there, yeah.
That's
Charlie
good.
Ortega.
That's good. I hope he's got the business card, FLG, forklift guy. Okay, so incredible. But again, this is a great intersection between there's the strategy, there's the money, there's the math of the business, but kind of belying the whole story you just shared with us is the emotional component. How did you keep believing in what you were doing, believing enough to ask friends and family for money, believing enough to sell your own stuff, like even with the pending closure of your own business? How do you keep going in that moment? How does an entrepreneur persevere there? What was going through your mind?
I think there's a few things. One thing that just kept me going was no matter how bad it got, like it got, there was a month or so where it was just like, it was one of the most difficult times of my entire life. And it kind of, just before it finally got as bad as it was going to get, I was at the bank. My banker is telling me, Travis, you have no money. Like, well, I know that. I mean, I didn't have to come downtown for you to tell me I don't have money. Come on. And I thought, okay, it's over. Like, what do I do? Like, am I going to go to jail because I can't pay my bills? Or like, how bad is it going to be? And then she started crying and telling me how much she loved her water bottle because she's drinking water, she's lost weight, her skin's better, her husband's more interested in her, she's cooking better, she's living better. She's telling me all these things about this water bottle. She's like, I'm going to give you a couple more months, but you gotta start making money. So I was like, that's a deal, and it's like, I had to do it for stories like that, and those stories started pouring in. The more we sold, the more people would reach out, and they would share with us these remarkable stories of how their lives were enhanced by drinking water, and how it was the #1 most stolen item in their household. Everybody kept stealing the HydroFlask, and they had to keep buying more. And it was like, okay, it really is helping people. So if I have to sacrifice myself for a few more units of time, so be it, I guess. Eventually, hopefully, karma will come around, and so that was a big part of it.
Again, I'm just astounded by all of this, that because you had the relationship with the banker based on water, something so simple, but what it meant, what it represented, not just the product, but in her life. That's the value proposition that you typically don't print in the back of the box. This water bottle might make your husband more interested in you. But it's there. But it was meaningful to her. It wasn't. That's not bad. That's life. That's what makes business so powerful. It makes it so powerful to change. Like we laugh about that, but that's a real thing. And because of that, HydroFlask was able to go on and do insurmountably more than what that moment would have told you on paper. So you're able to keep going because you saw the impact, you saw the relationship, and you saw, like, here's my proof of concept. My proof of concept might not be cash flow and number of units totally sold right now, but my proof of concept is here's the relationship I have with the customer, and that's what's validating that belief I have, and that's what allowed you guys to succeed. So for all the entrepreneurs in the room right now who are in this formative stage, they're deciding what they're going to believe about themselves, about the world, about moving forward. How would you suggest they form those beliefs?
I would say that passion-based is a big help. If you have a passion for something, or even a calling that you can't quite describe, or passion is great, but you might not even have passion. You might just have a calling, and for something you don't even necessarily want to do or think you can do, or I would say listen to those also. Listen to those things that maybe not obvious, because the world needs entrepreneurs badly. We need entrepreneurs worse now than I think we ever have needed them before. We need people to stand up and start to, well, I won't start going down all my soapbox paths, but
No, go on your soapbox. This
we need
soapbox.
entrepreneurs. We need entrepreneurs. We need those that have the courage to stand up and do good in this world and create products and services and businesses that are upstanding, that are honest, that are reliable, and that are long lasting. And we need to help support those companies. We need more American-based businesses, manufacturing, growth. We need global-minded humans to put together beneficial endeavors that will hopefully save what we have. Because this is as far as we know right now. This is about what we have. Until we learn of other places we can go, we got to take care of this. I don't even know if that had anything to do with your question. I just got completely off topic.
That was fantastic. That had everything to do with the question. Well, and that's the goal. It's because, again, like we say entrepreneurship, and it's a fancy 17th century French word, but we're talking about, the rote definition means to undertake. It's we're listening to your whole story, like, man, here's how Travis undertook this incredible thing and the amazing impact it's had and just the change of narrative. And so for everybody else in this room, here's the impact of that change of belief. So I'm going to ask you one more question, kind of on those same lines, and then we're going to open it up for questions from the room, because I'd love to get this interaction. I'm sure you guys would love to talk to Travis as well. He's brilliant. So my last question is this: how can we learn to be entrepreneurs?
Just go do. Just go do. People will tell you what you're doing wrong and what you're doing right, and neither of those people are correct. But people will tell you, and as long as you're just doing, you'll get it. You'll know. Like if you don't know something, don't worry about that. Don't go to college for 4 years to go learn that. Just trust that when it's time to physically do that, somebody will show up, or something will show up, and you'll say, oh, I know that. That's cool. I know it. I just push the B button, and it works. And sometimes you push A and it doesn't work, and you go, I'm going to try not to do that too many more times, but just go do. Because if you don't do, you can get hung up and wrapped up in what ifs and all that little mental jargon. That little hamster wheel starts going, and then pretty soon you're working for somebody else, and you're not living your dream, and you're not living your purpose, and that's not good. Like, you got to live what you're here to live. And if it's to be an entrepreneur, bless you, it's not easy, but fucking, can I say fucking? Go for it. Just go do it. I guess I said it twice. So. Did I get really?
We're throwing around French, so.
That's true. That's what it must have been.
If you pardon mine, I'll pardon yours. Great.
I'll pardon your entrepreneur. That's great.
Great.
I don't even know how to spell that word, honestly.
I got a master's in social entrepreneurship, and I kind of wish they would have made that a prerequisite before they handed you your diploma on the stage. It's like, all right, spell this in front of everybody before we give you this piece of paper. And if you don't spell it, like, that's the one I was like, no, you're done. Like Squid Game, you're out.
I would have been done. No.
That's fine, but yeah, that's not the point. Like, we need to find a non-16-letter word to talk about what we're doing. That's a really, really big deal. So somebody out here, please.
I found a 4-letter one, but there might be one kind of in between somewhere. Yeah.
This is good. We're gonna workshop, get to the center. Excellent. Love it. So we just have a couple minutes left here. I'd love to get a chance to get a couple of questions from the audience. Travis, is that okay?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Great. Thank you. And include everybody, because this is our fireside chat here.
I have a fireplace.
I know. I'm so proud of you. So exciting. So a couple questions, and you guys can just shout them out to me, and I'll repeat them to Travis.
Hey, right here.
Whoa. Okay. I'll take the bravery. Sure. Go ahead.
So my question is, what was your biggest mistake?
So the question, Travis, what was your biggest mistake? You could hear it. Great.
I would say the biggest mistake, I think that, I mean, is that micro-specific to HydroFlask? Or is that in my whole life? What does he mean?
He says HydroFlask. HydroFlask.
Oh, for HydroFlask. My biggest mistake at HydroFlask, I would say, damn, that's a good question. I think that there was a lot of hard times and there was a lot of stuff that I had to go through. I think one of the biggest mistakes that actually kind of, this may be skirting the question, but the original 40 ounce was supposed to be 32 ounces. And when I drew it out, I thought I knew exactly what I was doing. And I designed it and I got the patent for it and everything worked. And then we got them in and they turned out to be 40 ounces, not 32. That was a pretty big mistake. We had thousands and tens of thousands of dollars of marketing into these 32 ounce bottles. And then we had to switch over to the 40 all of a sudden. But like I would say daily I was making mistakes, but I was doing the opposite the very next day. So I didn't necessarily hold those past mistakes. I don't hold them in consciousness. I'm sorry, I didn't really answer your question too well.
Oh, that was great. That was wonderful. The young woman right here.
In what ways are you still working to change the narrative and use your platform and power to promote sustainability?
For sustainability specifically?
Yeah, so I'll repeat that, Mike. So in what ways are you using your platform, like still using your platform, to change the narrative and promote sustainability in business?
In business, yeah. Well, I help a lot of businesses. I still do some consulting for startups and for established businesses with the Tumalo Group. I started the Tumalo Group as a kind of a consulting agency. But also I do these talks, and I really do encourage people to become entrepreneurs. I really do believe that we cannot leave it up to the current system that we have. We can't leave it up to our politicians. We can't leave it up to those who are running our systems that we have currently. We have to stand up. We have to make that difference. And until we find a word that's not really entrepreneur, not really fuck, but somewhere in between, it's up to us. And so I think that's the way that I do that the most is by giving these talks, podcasts, things like that.
Excellent. I think we have time for just one or two more. Okay, the stand-up. I'll take the stand-up. Go ahead, please.
You said we need more entrepreneurship and manufacturing in the U.S. Are the bottles made in the U.S. now?
So you
They
said
never have been.
Yeah.
They've never been. It was a misnomer. There's been a few rumors kind of floating around about HF, and one of them was that they were made in Bend back when I owned the company. And then after I sold, they went on to China. They've always been in China. I would say 99.99%, and if there is a 0.01% of stainless steel water bottles being made anywhere besides China, I have no idea where that is, but they have always been made in China. And there's about 3 or 4 factories that produce pretty much all of them from the same couple factories in the same general region, Más o menos.
Gotcha. Okay, time, really quick. Would you mind being my time check here real quick? Where are we at?
148.
All right, okay. So with that, we're going to have to wrap up, and we're going to switch gears here. But everybody, can we give a huge round of applause for Travis? Travis, any parting words and farewell? You've been wonderful. We appreciate you so much. You're the best in every way.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan. I am sorry I wasn't there with you guys in person. That would have been awesome. If you ever want to invite me back, I'd love to show up, hopefully in person next time, but I really appreciate it. I say thank you. And yes, if you have, the other thing is don't worry about failure. Really, really don't worry about failure, because you will learn so much if you do happen to fail. Let's put air quotes around the word fail. You're really going to learn a lot, and the failure can be a starting and jumping off place for the next, success. So the key thing is just to take that first step in that direction. It'll happen.
Wonderful. Okay. On that wonderful note, Travis, thank you so much for joining us. Let's give a standing ovation for the entrepreneur. Come on. This guy's amazing. Captain of industry. See you, Travis. We all turn around and wave bye, even at the camera. Bye. Bye. See you, man. All right, everybody stay up. Everybody stay up. Everybody stay up. This is two-part. One, we're going to honor Travis. Travis, so good to see you. We're going to transition to our next speaker now. So two things I loved really quick that I want to take away from that. One, again, I hope everybody's seen the importance of like, play this game. Be a part of this. Don't let this moment pass you by. Get into it. And then two, figure it out. It's not failure. It's figuring it out. It's take the next right step, and that's how you keep moving. All right, we're all up. We're going to have another fireside chat. And as we do with the fireside chat, take a stretch. Take a stretch. Come on, stretch, people. Don't rip your suit jackets. Those are nice jackets. You look good, but stretch it out. Swing it out. Swing it out, swing it out, swing it out. Okay, great. All right, with that, let's all grab a seat. We're going to keep moving here. Grab a seat. Recenter. You can do it. I know. It's a lot. All right, everybody, find a seat. In 5, 4, 3, 2. I'm going to start using an announcer voice. Ooh, he has a baritone. Oh my gosh. You guys. Okay, excellent. I'm so glad we got to have Travis, and I'm also super duper excited about this next person we have is going to come have a fireside chat with us, share with us. Travis was an entrepreneur. He launched the company. He did an amazing job. He sold the company. HydroFlask is phenomenal. Not only is it a wonderful product, it's making an impact, it's changing narratives. Excellent. So I want to take a moment to zoom out here. Our next guest, what I love about him is he's somebody who has walked the founder's shoes. He's been an entrepreneur, but he is in an incredible place. Who here wants to have a startup one day? Who here thinks that maybe somehow their company might have a digital connection? All of you. It's all digital companies now. Didn't you see the Meta announcement? Metaverse? That's good. I got a little chuckle. 70% of startups use this next company. 70% of startups in the US. It's pretty freaking killer. The impact it has is phenomenal, and the insights they get from that. If you want to talk to somebody who can tell you, okay, here's what's going on, here's what works, I've been in your shoes, I've seen it to the end of the road, to the happily ever after, to the success story, and now I'm in a position where I'm saying, what's the ecosystem we want to be a part of? Our next speaker can tell you that. His name is Michael Greenberg. He is the head of startup. Okay, Michael, yeah. He's got some fans. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Greenberg, welcome to the stage. So glad you're here.
I don't even know if this is a hot mic. It's a hot mic.
It's a hot mic. You're on.
All right. And
great.
forklift guy's coming next. I can't even believe that.
I'm so excited for Forklift Guy. It's going to be great. Somebody meme that, please.
Yeah.
Get on it. Phones out. Okay, so Michael, as I was just saying, you're in this really unique spot. You're at AWS, and you're at the new AWS startups.
Yep.
Can you unpack that? What is that?
Sure. Well, first, following Travis is brutal. I've been working from home for a year and a half, so the anxiety I'm getting seeing this many faces in a room is unbelievable. He did a great job. One of the things I looked up was how many followers he had on Instagram. Anybody know? And I'm saying this for a reason. No? How many? Yeah, 216. You win the prize. 216. So I got him beat by 177. But the point is, a lot of the successful people you haven't heard of. And he got me beat on the last exit by 177 million, so he's winning there. But the point is, a lot of what's going on, the real winners, are invisible. It's not the ones that you're hearing about that are really hogging up about 99% of the airtime. And I'll give you a dirty little secret. Many of them actually aren't successful. So hopefully we'll unpack that in a bit. But my role at AWS is to help really get to this place of success, not hype. And the team I'm on, it's one of 50. All of us have some form of exit, some form of failure. I am the least successful person on my team. The person down the proverbial hall founded StubHub. We have multiple people with IPOs, and we each handle a separate vertical. My vertical is universities, and that's because unlike Travis, when it came to ladies, I had a total addressable market of 0. I was in physics, and I basically, got a call from my mother one day that said, if you don't make $100,000 a year, you'll never have a wife or kids. I got that call at age 25. She's easy. She's an easy mom. And so I didn't know what entrepreneurship was, definitely didn't know how to spell it. And that led me to the journey that now today landed here at this team of founders who each have different levels of expertise. And our job is to go and slice up that 70% that we power at AWS and help each of you with your journey. And that comes in the form of credits, that comes in the form of actually special office hours, which is why I have my professor jacket on. And it also comes in the form of talks like this. So I'm super happy to be here.
That's excellent. Now, you said something really, of course, pertinent to everybody in the room. Universities. It's like when you are looking at universities, and specifically universities in relation to startups, like how does that play out? What are you wanting to see happen?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up Meta, because that really messed up our thinking on what university startups are, right? So my sister went to school with Mark Zuckerberg. And I'm going to take my Amazon hat off for a second. People don't know the story, which is he had already formed a company in high school and had sold it. And that company, I think, was sold to Microsoft. And then after that, you know the story from there, but everybody, all the VCs said, we've got to find the next 19-year-old with a $30 billion or trillion dollar now idea. And I found that really shifted the narrative away from what was really happening, which was, people forming smaller companies that slightly become bigger or they fail, taking those learnings, moving to the next one, getting a bigger network along the way. Everything you talked about, that sort of snowball effect, that was really what was happening. And so when I joined, the idea was to push back on this idea that you drop out of school, immediately raise $10 million and go on a rocket ship. And so that's sort of what I'm empowered to do. And so how I think about university startups are the best place to fail, the tightest network to test in, and frankly, the one time in your life, and it only happened once, where other people that are way higher up the food chain will pick up your call. Because as soon as you graduate, you're no longer precocious. You're just one of the rest of everybody else. So this is this special time of access as well.
Which I think is so key to point out. Again, talking about the importance of relationships and connections and this unique opportunity you have in this moment. So you're seeing, okay, here's how you take advantage of the university moment, of this kind of emerging adult launching pad. How does that then fit into the ecosystem? What are we launching them into? What does the future of entrepreneurship look like?
Yeah, so my first company was called Scale Funder, and Scale Funder, it was because it was the only domain we could buy. So you'll find if you've ever gone through naming, it's what can you afford that's still out there. That's a .com, and now it's .ai. And when I went out there, it was I was solving a problem in my own backyard. So I was 26. I had a Willy Wonka title. I was director of innovation at UCLA. And I was surrounded by all of these other entrepreneurs. And I saw that the scientists around me weren't able to raise money. They were losing all their grant money. This is back in 2009 when the market had collapsed. And you were, I hope, in 4th grade. But basically, it was like this time where everything was melting. Reminded me a little bit of COVID, honestly, what everybody went through a year ago. And crowdfunding was just a buzzword at the time. I think Kickstarter and Indiegogo had just gotten started. And I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. So what I did was I went out, I talked to some of our professors that were trying to raise money. If you have worked with professors, you know that they're great at grant writing, not great at marketing. And so they would say, I'm trying to cure cancer, I'm going to raise $1 million. And they'd raise like $50 on Indiegogo. And it started to get really embarrassing. And the universities started to get angry. And at UCLA, I looked around and I realized there was no way we were going to build it. We had, it took us a year and $1 million to stand up a website. So I said, what if I tried to do this? And I'm going to skip a couple steps and can save things for Q&A, but basically I went out and started a crowdfunding platform. It was a problem in my backyard, It ended up scaling. It's now, that platform was acquired, but it's the leading platform for powering research, scholarships, entrepreneurship around the US. And frankly, your universities probably use it. It's white labeled, so they're using your university name. But that's what I mean by what does it look like in a university? There's all these problems in your backyard that you get to solve and test. And I found that since I've graduated, finding those problems gets a little bit more difficult. You know, they're not all around you. And so that was helpful for me, and that's sort of the start of my journey.
And that's excellent. So you went from university model, not typically a great place to be an entrepreneur, but lots of connections.
Yeah.
Then you launched your own thing, made an exit. Why Amazon?
Yeah, so that happened. We got to skip 10 years. So entrepreneurship ages you. I'm only 25 years old. No, it's like I'm 39. So I started when I was 26 unofficially and truly 28. And what happened along the way was I had the problem of success. No one told me what to do the day you sell your company. So can I just quick show of hands, how many people in here would be the first member of their family to be an entrepreneur? Okay, all right. And how many, if you don't mind me asking, would even be the first member of your family to go to higher education? Yeah, exactly, it's a pathway up. So you can probably tell from the phone call I got from my mother, being an entrepreneur was not in the cards. So when I went on this journey and succeeded, it happened really quickly. I got extremely lucky in retrospect. I sold the company within 2.5 years of launching it, and then I became a one-hit wonder. Then I was a wild animal that had to go back and get a job, and because I didn't have a $210 million exit. And so I found myself actually not knowing what to do with the success. All I was doing was being prepared for failure. Seriously, because you've heard the stats. 9 out of 10 venture-backed companies fail, and all this, that, and the other. Nobody talks to you about what success looks like, even in a small way, and how to set it up. So I floundered. For about 1.5 years, I didn't know what to do with myself. No one wanted to hire a 31-year-old CEO. And I ended up starting another company. And that company became Retina AI, which is still around today. Retina just did their last funding round, a large A round, and that's in artificial intelligence. But COVID hit, and I had to restructure the company. I'd been a CEO nonstop for 10 years, and I found that I was at a place where I needed to take a step back. So I moved up to the board, and I got this weird knock on the door. Obviously not really on the door, but a founder that I knew said, hey, there's this secret team in AWS, and there's only 50 of them. And I was like, AWS, aren't those like, that sounds brutal. Like, how do you work at Amazon? I've heard the stories. They said, no, it's this little island. And if you can get through the process, you get to actually effectively help everyone else and take your learnings. And I can't believe it, but I got through the process during COVID, joined the team, and got to actually learn about the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization along the way. And I got to meet you. I mean, This is the thing. I'm getting to sort of get back out into the world. So I've been there for about 1 year and just started launching a lot of programs that we can talk about later.
Absolutely, and so I'll put a pin in that. So we've talked about some business challenges, some personal challenges. I'm guessing you got married along the way?
No, well, to my work. So
that's your work. Okay,
is my mom paying you for these questions?
Well, I just really wanted her name to be Tammy.
Yeah. My TAM of 1 now.
Yeah, you guys
I
catch up,
have
don't worry.
a significant other.
Okay,
But I do want to say this. So Travis was awesome, right? And he launched a CPG company. I'm a pure tech person, and there's obviously different flavors for different people. I know you've launched multiple enterprises, and the thing that I kept thinking about before coming on stage was, how do I tell you something that's not the same old, same old? Because I've been to a lot of the conferences, and I know how quickly it is to zone out, and I realized, wait a minute, everybody's still kind of talking about fundraising. Everybody's still talking about VC. I'm going to tell you right now, that's not how I became successful. And the most successful mentors I know didn't take a single VC dollar. So my exit was the equivalent of if I'd exited for 100 million but took VC money. I want you to think about that for a second. I had 10x the return, so for me, right? So when you're thinking about raising money, and we'll talk about this tactically, and I want to bring this up in questions, but the reason why my company was successful was because I had a position at a university selling to universities. I already had a built-in market. I had a built-in network. I had people around me, so the first $75,000 I sold was before we even built a demo. Okay, so when you're thinking about the ideas you have, that's the first thing I want to leave you with. Entrepreneurship is not equal to VC. I think you taught me this stat. 0.05%, I looked it up, of all companies started get VC. 0.05%. Those are Squid Game numbers, right? It's not good. And so what are the rest doing? Well, guess what? There's new types of capital, like pitch competitions, like that uncle you don't talk to. But seriously, there's all sorts of ways to get non-dilutive capital and ways to test your product now in market well before you have to raise money. And I can tell you there's a dark side to raising too much too soon.
Yeah, I think that's like the counter narrative we hear. Like, because when you and I were talking, we talked about like how I have a 2-year-old son, and so when he does begin to date successfully, let's hope.
Yeah.
And like when he turns 14, I'm not going to say like, okay, let's learn about relationships. Turn on the Jerry Springer Show. So why would we look at Shark Tank? And be like, this is a totally healthy business relationship. They're literally saying like a predator's name in the title. It's going to be great. It's not, but that's not the way it works. So what is the new way? What is the better way?
So I thought of it, and I have a terrible acronym. I think it's JBOOS or something like that. So you'll have to get more vowels in it. But it's gather, pre-sell, build, and then iterate. Now, I'm going to unpack that really quickly because it's really simple. Gather your contacts, okay? Email, SMS are still supreme, but you can also use social media. So that's for anything you're doing right now. Again, I told you, I have 393 followers. Hopefully by the end of this talk, 394 on Instagram. That's clearly not going to be my main channel of go-to-market. But I have, I believe, something like 20,000 followers on LinkedIn, okay? So find first that. And then secondly, pre-sale. So people call this customer development, but literally go to market, just like I did with these other universities, and said, are you having a problem that you're actually willing to pay for? If they're not willing to pay for it, it's not a real problem. It's just a nuisance. And the second part of this was build. Build after. Everybody's building before. Build after that. And then use the building as a test function with these people. HydroFlask is a great example of that. They went from an idea of 32 ounces to 40 ounces. For me, I realized all the features I was going to build next by the customer feedback that was happening right then. So let's unpack that. Gather becomes your marketing later on, right? Pre-sell actually becomes your customer development cycles. Build becomes your R&D. And iterate, if you do this right, becomes scale. And that needs a better acronym. But that is literally how to do it the non-VC way. Because let me tell you what the VC way is. It can be gather, and it might be pre-sale, but then VC jumps in, and now it's scale, straight to scale. Start hiring up, start doing all of this. Well, guess what? Now you've got to burn, and now you might be going for markets that aren't realistic. You're on hopium and fumes. And all of a sudden, a pretty decent company's dead in a year. But see, you were just part of their portfolio. I'm not trying to slam VCs. They have a point here. But you were just part of their portfolio while this was your life's work. Okay? It's Tuesday for them. It's your life. So I'm not saying VCs are bad. They're good. I use them for the second company. But be careful where they are in the process. If you bring them in later, all of a sudden you got private equity, venture debt, competitions, loans. There's all sorts of other capital once you start to get a little traction going that opens up optionality. And again, most of the successful entrepreneurs I know you haven't heard of, but they're the ones who did that process, not the raise $100 million when you only have $1,000 of revenue. There's a lot of those companies, by the way, secretly right now.
Oh, and not so secretly.
Yeah.
Like, it's just out there. So like you mentioned earlier, really key thing in that. Even with your acronym, the GPBI, what was that again?
It's gather, pre-sell, build, iterate, so GPBI, something like that. Rolls off the tongue.
That's great. I like it. Workshop it. So there are different acronyms. There's different structures, different strategies, and even like different tools. Like when you're looking at this group right here, who are all hoping to launch companies, what tools should they be looking at? Like what models should they be looking at?
So you mentioned digital at the beginning. So I know I'm doing the Socratic method with you, but one more show of hands. Who here does ship code? Who knows how to code in here? Or plays around with code? All right, okay. And who doesn't? Raise your hand. I want to see the room go up. Okay, that's fine, right? That's the future. So let's talk about code first. If it's code, come to me because I'm giving you free credits. The only reason my two companies worked is because I basically got a scholarship from Amazon where the first $100,000 I spent, I didn't spend. There's no way I could have started those companies without that free runway. So there is zero excuse now if you're starting a tech-based, cloud-based company, which means anyone doing anything involving coding now, today, you get so much runway for free that's more than enough to test. And as you know, 12 years ago, you had to go raise money or find a friends and family round. You don't have to do that anymore. So that's one. If you are not technical, all of these new platforms that are no code are amazing. Bubble, if anybody has heard of that, is an incredible platform that abstracts all the things that people do for code for standing up websites, for standing up the ability to do payment processing and checkout. You have Shopify if you're doing CPG, all the things you know. I'm telling you what you already know. But what's cool about that is it costs nothing now to stand things up and start testing, except for time and grit. And that's honestly where I get concerned because I see very little barrier to entry now. It's going to be a problem when you scale, by the way, because it means competitors can get in easily. But in the beginning, it's easier. And so are you actually an entrepreneur or are you kind of a wantrepreneur? Are you kind of a person who just likes the idea and likes to wear the jacket, but it doesn't fit? So the other thing Travis mentioned was like all of you being entrepreneurs and starting something. I would also encourage you to go join somebody else's passion and idea if you don't have your own and learn and feel what it's actually like. Because guess what? If it succeeds, they're going to be the people that put the money in for your next company. So that's what I would say looking at this audience. Go join a startup as much as start a startup because I know I've already invested in the people who've worked with me who I hired right out of university. So really pick up some of those skills by working with other entrepreneurs as well. But yeah, Amazon credits, obviously. Startup competitions and non-dilutive competitions. All of these no-code platforms are all there for the taking for you.
And so who is succeeding right now? It's like when you're seeing the people out there, like, okay, they're doing it right.
Yeah, so I'll give you some inside baseball market trends. I wish I had the ability to turn the camera off, but if Jeff from outer space contacts me, I'm in deep trouble. Alexa? No, not in the room, okay.
Oh, that'd be terrifying.
Always listening. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. And Michael no longer works at Amazon. All right. So here's the things that I'm seeing. First of all, crypto and fintech as a trend right now is getting about 25% of all VC money. I'm going to pull some VC trends first, but 25%. Healthcare, life science is also another large tranche we're seeing. No code is going nuts right now. If I were to start a company today, it'd probably be a no-code company. How do I serve all of you in the room? Because I want to sell picks and shovels. I like that. If you're chasing gold, I want to sell you the way to chase that gold, right? So those are trends I'm seeing. And let's see, what else? Another big trend is this concept right now in CPG of what we call the post-COVID hangover. So all those companies that had to go fully digital and retail was gone, it went from multiple channels to one. Everybody was buying, government was pumping a lot of money in. We're now seeing a massive retrenchment. So if you are a consumer product good company, the big trend we're seeing there is cost of acquisition shooting up. So you better be thoughtful about, again, who's your real market? What's your real price point? Don't get drunk on scaling too soon. There's a lot of companies that looked good during COVID that are now falling apart because they sold everything at a loss and thought they'd make it up at scale. So those are the big trends. Post-COVID hangover in consumer, meaning pay attention to customer acquisition, fintech, healthcare, life science, and no code. Those are the ones we're seeing internally and really targeting.
Excellent. And when we're talking about even just for this group, if they were going to pick up, here's the skill set, here's the book you need to read, the thing you need to know, the type of character trait you should develop.
Yeah, well, I'm going to presage that question of what was your biggest mistake, because it sounds like Travis had a really good personal answer, but not the professional answer for that. I have a good professional answer for that. I didn't understand two important things, and then we'll get into what the skills were. One, that you absolutely want 100% of, you want a small percent of something than 100% of nothing. So greed is a problem early. Share your equity. Be generous. When you're trying to build your team, don't be that CEO who's like, it's my idea when you have nothing, right? Your 1 in a million idea is had by 7,000 other people by definition, right? So instead of having the idea and saying, I own 90% of the company and you own 10% when you're only paying them in hot pockets, get real. Give them a close to equal stake, if not equal stakes, because they're all going to be in the trenches with you. And secondly, it's this concept of really going to markets you actually know, or areas where you actually are passionate and feel your problem. A big B school student problem is they come in from consulting or business backgrounds with 5 years of experience, and they want to go open a restaurant. Or they want to go do this thing that's totally different. And I get it, because for them it's like a vacation from life and work. But as an entrepreneur, this is work. Go to the areas you know and the pain you know. So what do I like to read? I mean, I don't want to go over the pedagogy CEO teaches. It's awesome. What you have here is a pretty good playbook. What I think I would be doing is making sure, like at this conference, you're actually networking. Finding the rock stars in this room, which I know are here, that can supplement your idea so you can test. Because I look at this and I think, I see 20 to 30 startups by the end of the week. That's what I think when I see all of you. But the books are there. You know what they are. I'm not going to give you recs because CEO and all of your universities have that. I was just more going to give advice. I also had to fire, so the answer to my biggest mistake, I fired my best friend. And I confused a friend with a co-founder, which was the equivalent of shooting Lassie. It was tough. So really think about, are these business partners or just friends? Is this a vacation or you're starting a company?
Yeah. Well, and again, so many companies, anytime I see a company and they're throwing around the word like, we're a family here.
Oof.
Oh, don't do that. You're a team.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
you have a family.
Yeah. Patty McCord is showing up right here. Netflix? Like anybody? Okay, never mind. Kids these days. What are you learning?
I want to short Netflix after hearing that.
Okay.
What are they watching?
But yeah, I mean, classic thing. But yes, it's like, okay, you're in this together, but how do you have a healthy relationship?
Yeah.
And so that you all can achieve, so that you can do the right thing. And again, it's not, when you have a company fail, it's not that you were a failure, it's that this idea was that. It's the same thing for us and the things, like if you join a startup and you are not with that startup to exit, that's not a failure, especially in your first 10 years. Goodness gracious. Like my first, 2 years as a startup, I learned more than I learned in business school.
Yeah.
Long shot.
Yeah.
It's like the value exchange there is still phenomenal. So we only have time for a couple of questions, but I'd love for you guys to ping Michael with some questions here. Can we get a couple? Done?
Yeah.
Briefly talked about equity, and I think that's something that's completely like blown out of proportion in a way in media. Like it's very emphasized, and it's the first thing people talk about. So, from your perspective, how important is equity in actuality? Like how?
With respect to, so the question was how important is equity in actuality, but with respect to what? With respect to your founders and setting it up, or when you're talking to VCs, or do you have a, in general?
Yeah, just in general.
I'm happy to quickly answer that one. So most of your startups will fail. So I will say this, when you're applying for a company and they offer you a lot of equity but pay you a wildly below market salary, it's okay to push back a little bit. If you join a company and you're employee 300, unless that company is Tesla, it isn't changing your life, okay? It's changing the first 30 people's lives in that big company. So I think that is a problem, where people overvalue equity if they're late to the train. Equity is a life changer when you're Series A or earlier, usually, in a company's life cycle. So that's the way I think about it, is it's a function of stage. If you're one of the first few and you succeed, equity will change your life. Otherwise, it won't. But you still have to eat. And so one of the ways to navigate this problem in an early stage is figuring out who actually needs the cash and having an honest conversation with them about, hey, we're really going to have to take a lot of equity off the table then. Because cash is the actual lifeblood early. Equity is the thing you hold on to really hard later. So that's how I would answer it. Do you want to?
No, that's great. And if you haven't learned it in class, go YouTube what equity means. What does it mean to exercise your options? What does it mean if you leave early? What does it mean to vest? What's a ROFR? Go learn that stuff. And otherwise, don't go to a startup.
Yeah.
That's what you're there for. And I'm stunned by like the number of people like, yeah, dude, I have no idea. I just signed it. It's cool. I got some equity. I'm like, no, you don't.
You got nothing.
You got zero. You haven't been here 4 years yet. Come on, you know founders.
And then they leave and don't buy their equity, and they still have zero. I know.
Or can't.
Or can't.
Yes.
I know. Anyway,
Okay.
it's
All right, yeah. We can go on.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. We got him right over here. Stacy got us a mic.
So first and foremost, thank you for coming and presenting. I really appreciate your time, but I can tell you're a very busy person. So how do you effectively manage your day-to-day? Do you have like a routine that conquers the steady state flow of mind? How do you stay effective and productive?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you saying that, because while I am busy, I'm in awe of the people who truly have every 15 minutes scheduled in their day. What I do is I found psychologically that, so I'll just say it out loud, I had pretty bad ADHD growing up. So I had to really come up with mechanisms on mechanisms, especially as a CEO where ball drops me in the death of the company, to deal. So what I do is I know, first of all, for myself, the first 4 hours of the day are my best. And I try to put the hard tasks there. And I also build in gaps. So before coming to speak to you, I was a little scared, I'm not gonna lie. I actually was in my room decompressing. I wasn't going and glad handing around. I had to manage my energy. So energy management's number one, knowing the parts of the day where you're at your best and building buffers in between. Context switching, in my opinion, where people love to brag about how they work 80-hour weeks and they're just constantly cranking, only works for a small subset of people behaviorally. So having a task without a cool down and then another task and another task usually erodes you and your executive functioning in your prefrontal cortex. So that's my answer.
Phenomenal. I think we have time for one more. I know we're a little bit over clock here, but go ahead.
So you talked about luck, and I would really love to come back to this conversation about luck. I read this interesting notion within a book a couple months ago about how the more lucky people are the ones that had put in the work, but there are obviously lucky people that got lucky, right?
Yeah.
What's your notion on, like lucky people that put in the work, that are entrepreneurs, that are doing the work, networking, going to meet those people, going to shake hands, that sort of thing? Do you think that there's more lucky people like that, or lucky people that get lucky because they are stumbled upon some opportunity that presents them with luck?
Oof. All right, that's existential. I'll do my absolute best on that, and then I'd love to say one last thing to the room if we have time, because I know we're going over. So, first of all, any one of us, including Travis, yourself, freaky lucky. There's just no other way around it. We could unpack all the ways that we have insane luck, but I will say this. There were 3 other people with the idea I had at ScaleFunder. Only one of us got acquired. I wasn't the best. What happened was 2 things. Number one, I showed up. That other founder didn't show up to the events to sell, thought his product sold itself. And secondly, that other founder, I'm not trying to pick on this other founder, but had a head start on me, but wasn't willing to kind of die for the customer. So while we were both lucky to be right place, right time, meaning it was the right time for the idea, and we were in the right market for it, the area that differentiated was the showing up and really being there. That doesn't mean who worked the longest hours. That means kind of trying to minimize any chance of failure. In this case, it was going to the customers and saying, I will do whatever it takes to keep you a customer. Getting on a plane, even when I didn't have the money, and telling them, what else can I do for you? That customer obsession. So I will say, luck is usually a function of timing and network and all of that, and you can bolster them. But customer obsession, for me, has been the best risk management tool I've had in managing it.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Michael, take it away. So what are your last thoughts to this room of entrepreneurs, current and future?
Okay, well, first of all, obviously I don't have 300 business cards. So the best way, I'm going to do something that's super dangerous here, but I would like you, if you are doing something interesting, to get in touch with me. So I'd like you, through your CEO network, to ping the organization, and they will ping me, and we will put a special meeting on the books. I'm going to hold some office hours around entrepreneurship where I get tactical, where I'll literally answer your real questions. The stuff about how much should I give my co-founder, how do I structure my first contract, what's a good go-to-market strategy. I currently do this for about 200 institutions around the country, and it's invite only, all right? So that's part one. Contact your chapter, get in touch with James or one of these groups, and we'll make it work. Well, I will do special sessions for everyone here in a group, okay? That's one. 2, we have a pitch comp going on. So everybody who entered your pitch comp, you're already automatically entered into mine. But if you haven't entered, AWS has a massive pitch comp going on. And the winners last year and finalists, either went to Y Combinator or, and I know I'm doing the VC thing, but raised millions right afterwards. So I'd love for you to be a part of that. I'd love to see you there. If you have any ideas, it takes 15 minutes to fill out the form. That's it.
Phenomenal. Everybody, can we get a huge round of applause for Michael?
Thank you, guys. And for Ryan. Dude, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. No. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Good question, man. Thank you. Thanks, man.
That's good. I like that. Michael, awesome. Thank you, man. What cool people. Goodness gracious. Okay, we're going to hurry really fast. We have our afternoon sessions, so don't forget on the way out, check out the exhibitors, amazing partners out there. All these speakers have been handpicked, so get that. The semifinal round at 3:15. So get in all those encouragements now. And yes, lastly, join us back here for the Chapter Awards keynote presentation at 4:15. Guys, go to the sessions, learn everything, connect with each other. Good job. Break. I don't know how to post it. So stupid.